Good morning. It's 6 a.m. in Maui, and uh, having a great time here, learning a lot of new things that we'll bring back to share with you. It always amazes me when I come to an event like this, how much I don't know, right? How much more that we can all learn and put into our everyday business. Just to give you a quick update on the event and how Remax has maybe changed in the last 6 months more than I've seen it change in the last decade. Is Eric Carlson, who became our CEO of Remax a couple of years ago. It was funny. They did like a disc profile, but more in depth through the Bassini system. And one of his things is he's a detective, right? Is one of his traits.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that about him for the last 2 years is he just asks a bunch of questions and asks agents and brokers and owners and he found out, because he came from outside the industry. He ran Dish Network for many years, and so he knows how to deal with customer service and scaling. But part of the new team at Remax, he's hired the president of Christie's International. If you guys know, Christie's is a luxury brand, and he's also hired Sotheby's president and of Canada, and he's now the president of Remax Canada. And so he's brought in these pretty amazing humans that ran pretty amazing companies, and now they're part of the ecosystem at Remax, along with hiring Travis. And Travis worked for a consulting company called T360 that basically consulted every CEO of Remax or real estate related brands in the world. And so he's been in every CEOs of every brand's office. And so these three gentlemen have come together and really are turning things around. So anyway, I was just kind of speaking so I get everybody on, but I think we'll go ahead and get started. I am super excited that John's taking the time to speak to you all. I know Rick Ramirez, you talk about him often, and John has just been an amazing human being. I had the pleasure of meeting him at a GoBundance event, probably somewhere around 2017, 2018. He launched his book, the Mr. Thank You Project. I think that's the title.
Yeah.
And uh, and we had the pleasure of bringing him into our office. Right, he was there at Weimar in September of 2018. We had a great evening together, and on the way to the office, he went to speak to you all, and I went to Japan on a GoBundance adventure trip. So uh, I wasn't going to miss him, even though I was going to be all the way here in Maui. So, but I would say get a notepad out, get some thank you cards out because he's probably going to help you structure some thank you cards. And anyway, John, it's our pleasure to have you back at Remax Professional, and I'm so honored that you're here. So I'm going to just quit talking, leave it up to you.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you so much, Nate, for having me here today. And so, Nate, I'm never gonna let Nate live this down, but he's the first person that got me paid to speak, and it's just one of those like, do you remember your first real estate transaction? Like that first person who let you do this thing, you're like, I think I know what I'm doing. I hope it's gonna work out.
Mhm.
And they let you do it, and gratefully for our relationship, it didn't go terribly, and a lot of really positive things have happened in my career, and of course with you guys at Remax ever since then. So grateful to be invited back. So I'm going to connect the dots. If you have seen me speak before, if you saw me speak, way back in September of 2018, could you just drop a comment? I would love to hear if you were here back in September 2018 in the office, sponsored by Movement Mortgage. Just
Yeah, that's
yeah, let me. Let's see who we got there. That was all right. We got a handful. Okay, great. And many of you, by the way, have not uh seen me speak, so that's great. All right, so I'm going to kind of dive in right really where the story began. And the positive thing for those of you who have seen me speak before is that the core of what we're going to talk about today is the same, but really over the last 6-7 years, a lot has gone into really understanding this concept better of gratitude as a competitive advantage. And I'll start really where maybe many of you are right now, which is talking about our business. So I run a company called Mr. Thank You. Mr. Thank You is a strategic gifting firm. We're the top client appreciation company in the country. What we do is we help people love on their most important relationships. We started this business, by the way, at the perfect time to start anything in real estate, which was 2009. Nate, was anyone here in real estate in 2009? Was anyone here trying to sell houses around then?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So you know that was maybe not the most ideal time to get into real estate or be in real estate, but you know it was what it was, and we slogged through. And after several years, we got to a pretty good business. By 2015, 2016, I was making more money than I ever had. I had everything on paper I ever said I wanted. I was married. We bought our first house. We had our first child, but I was over it. I was overworked, overwhelmed, and so unhappy. I was ready to walk away from all of it, everything I had spent my career building. And it all changed one day when I came home. And I'll never forget because I walk in the front door and my wife is sitting on our couch and she's nursing our infant son in one hand and handwriting a thank you card in the other hand to some people who supported her during her pregnancy. Objectively, this was one of the most beautiful things I had ever seen. And I couldn't even appreciate it because I was so stressed and overwhelmed with my job. I couldn't appreciate anything. And I don't know how to tell you what happened next, except for to say that I believe God spoke to my wife that day and said something I will never forget, which is if you can't appreciate what you have now, who's to say you'll be any happier when you finally get what you say you want? If you can't appreciate what you have now, who's to say you'll be any happier when you finally get what you say you want, when you build the team the way you want, when the market shifts and changes and you get the interest rate that you've been asking for? If you can't appreciate what you have now, who's to say it's going to be any different later? I had a problem. Now, it was a problem I didn't have a name for at the time, but I do now, and it's called perpetual discontentment. Perpetual discontentment, which is the never-ending feeling that what is isn't enough. Now, I won't ask you to raise your hand if you also suffer from perpetual discontentment, because I find pretty much every entrepreneur I meet typically does. But it's not always a bad thing, right? Like it's not a bad thing to never be fully satisfied with what you have or where you're at in life, because if we're never fully satisfied, what are we going to do? We're going to get better. We're going to work on our systems, our processes, our listing presentations. We're going to get coaching, all of these things for the end benefit, the user, the customer, the client. But if we're not careful and this gets out of hand, perpetual discontentment will also prevent us from ever truly enjoying this life we're working so hard to create. And so this moment brings up my two greatest fears in life. Number one is that I will die alone. Because honestly, who wants to be married to a miserable grump who complains all the time, every single day? And two is that I might need to quit my job because it was causing so much stress in every other area of life that mattered to me. I shouldn't know if I can keep up with it. So why do I share that with you? Because the real estate industry is inherently stressful. Yes? Right? The real estate industry is inherently stressful, right? What do you guys have that's stressing you out? Well, I know about a year ago, we had the NAR settlement that everyone was losing their mind about, wondering like, how are we going to still sell real estate? We have to disclose all this stuff, right? Now, it's still a challenge for some people, but most of you figured that out, right? But then we still have like interest rates that have gone down a little bit, but they're still not quite getting everybody off the fence to buy houses or to put their house on the market. And on top of that, we've got all sorts of AI infiltrating the world and having us feel like, oh my gosh, if I don't figure all this AI stuff out, then I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to get taken over by robots, right? But fortunately, we get to go home, and that's when all of our stress goes away, right? Of course not, right? Because as soon as you go home, that's when you have like your spouse, you have your kids, likely you might be taken care of. You have other responsibilities and things you're taking on. We have social media that is causing people to be more disconnected than they've ever been. And it's crazy because political divisiveness has gotten so bad. There are people who will no longer talk to individuals that used to be on their emergency contact list. So if you're feeling a heightened level of stress, anxiety, and overwhelm now more than you ever have in your life, it doesn't make you crazy. It actually just means you're normal. So what do we do about it? That's what we're here to talk about today. See, so I was really struggling with this pessimism that was just not leaving my body. I couldn't deal with it. So I started working with a coach, and I've worked with a lot of coaches over my career, and they've always been good, but they focus on mostly business metrics, right? Like your phone calls, your prospecting, your leads, how many mailers you're sending out, all these different things, which are good. And I think we should track all of that stuff. But this guy was different. He asked me bigger picture questions like, what's your personal mission? Like what's your vision? What do you want to be remembered for? Why does your business exist? And these are all great questions that I didn't have great answers for. Because the only thing I could say at the time was, well, my personal mission is to make as much money as humanly possible. Now, by the way, I don't think there's anything wrong with making a lot of money, but let me ask you this. If somebody's primary why for their life is to make as much money as humanly possible, do you think their clients can feel that? Have any of you been on the opposite side of a transaction from an agent whose primary job was to maximize the profitability of this experience? Is that an enjoyable thing to be a part of? Typically not. So my coach says, John, here's the deal. This is the beautiful thing. This is your life. You get to decide your why. You get to decide what you're driven by. So it took me a little bit, but this is eventually what came out, which is that our mission at Mr. Thank You is to elevate the level of gratitude on the planet. And I remember writing this down and looking at it and thinking, like, this is it. Like, this is our mission. This is our vision. And then I got stopped in my tracks by my coach again. And he asked me and he shares with me a quote. It's one of those quotes that when you hear it, you don't get to unhear it. But it's by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Here's what he says. Excuse me, I cannot hear what you are saying because who you are speaks so loudly. Now, what I love and simultaneously don't love about this quote is that it challenges us to be consistent with our words. You know, it challenges us to not just say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I care about. Look, we even printed it on our business cards and painted it on the wall in the office, right? But to actually demonstrate it in our behavior. And the problem was, if you talk to 100 people who knew John Israel and said, hey, what do you know about this guy? They'd probably say some nice things like driven or successful. But you know what they wouldn't say? They wouldn't say grateful. They wouldn't say appreciative, and they certainly would not say happy to describe me. So I thought, how can that be? How can I be this guy who says he's about elevating gratitude on the planet, but yet I don't live it out in my life at all? So my coach says, John, so this is really simple. We just need to find a way for you to live out this value of gratitude every day of your life. What's a moment you've seen gratitude in its purest form? And I thought back to that moment a few months ago when I came home from work and I see my wife nursing our infant son and handwriting a bunch of thank you cards. And I thought, well, what if I do that? Not the nursing part, but the handwritten card part. Like, what if I made a commitment every single day to focus on handwritten cards and gratitude just to see what might happen? And that became the genesis of what is now known as the Mr. Thank You Project. And there were 4 rules to this specific project, and I'll break those down for you. So rule number 1 is that I would make a commitment to handwrite 5 thank you cards every single day for 365 consecutive days. Every card had to be handwritten, couldn't be a text or a video. Don't think there's anything wrong with that, but for me, had to be a handwritten card. Number 2, every day resets at 0, right? Because if something's a habit, we should do it every single day. So this simply means I couldn't skip like 3 days and then write 20 cards in a day, right? Because if it's a habit, we do it every day. Rule number 3, I can write a max of 3 cards per any one person. And this is important because I know myself, and if I couldn't think of who I'd write a card to, I might write the 75th thank you card to my mother, which who knows, maybe we should appreciate that. Are there any mothers on this call that would appreciate more gratitude from your children? All right, see some head nods. All right, but I also thought that if they kept going to the same people, the cards would lose their impact, significance, and their luster. So the 4th rule was kind of an interesting one. This is around accountability. So my coach says, John, I love this idea, but where is the accountability? What happens if or when you miss a day? And I thought about it, and I thought I had a good idea. I said, okay, for every day that I miss, I will donate $100 to charity. Felt pretty good about that. He looks at me and says, add a 0. And I said, excuse me? You want me to donate $1,000 to charity for every day that I miss writing my 5 thank you cards? Does anyone else here think that's a little absurd, by the way? And he says, well, John, check this out. I don't want you to have to donate any money, but let me ask you this. How likely is it that you're going to donate $100 or several $100s to charities anyways this year? And I thought, yeah, I mean, we kind of do that with our tithing process. And he says, okay, then you're giving yourself a way out. If what's at stake every day is $1,000, how many days are you going to miss? I mean, what would you say in that scenario? And of course, the answer is zero. There's no way you're going to miss a day. So then he asked me, then what would you like to do? So the fourth and final rule of the Mr. Thank You Project was $1,000 to charity for any and every day that I miss my 5 thank you cards. Now, when you do the math on this, 5 cards times 365 days is 1,825 letters of appreciation in 1 year's time. You don't need to know everything that happens to realize that if you made a commitment like that to express love, gratitude, and appreciation every day, multiple times a day to different people, you would be a different person by the end of that year. And that's exactly what happened. And while I can't tell you every single story from that experience, what I will highlight is that what I did not expect about this experience is that it would become a masterclass in positive psychology and relationship development, right? And actually, what came out of it was this understanding that what people want and need inside of a lasting, meaningful relationship are 4 things. We call these the hierarchy of human connection: seen, safe, significant, and supported. Seen, safe, or I should say supported and significant. These are the 4 things these are the emotional needs that everybody has in the context of a relationship. And so today we're going to talk about how do we develop that and how do we build a business that allows us to feel good regardless of the external circumstances and grow our business at the same time. That's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit into the project and talk about day 3. So day 3 was a really interesting part of the project. So to set the stage a little bit, at the time I lived in Southern California and we were moving across the US to Dallas, Texas. So I had a short business trip to go on. So I was at the airport. Now, when I was at the airport, interestingly, when people hear about the project, they ask the same question, which is like, I love this idea, right? Like, be more grateful, be more appreciative, but like, who are you writing your cards to? Like, I don't know, 1,825 people, especially if you're limited to 5 different people every day. And that's what you would learn, is that something like living gratefully every day is actually way harder than it sounds, because gratitude is not a natural state of being. Gratitude is very distinct from happiness, because you do not need to teach a child how to be happy, but you do need to teach them how to be grateful. And the reason why is because it's not a default setting to look for the positive. It's actually quite the opposite. What's been built into our psychology is something called a negativity bias. And a negativity bias is a proneness to look for what's wrong, to look for the threats before we ever notice anything that's good. And it actually makes sense. It was a survival mechanism from way back in the cavemen and cavewoman days when we lived in the jungle and we would hear a growl behind a rock. We wouldn't think that it's a cute little kitty cat. We would think saber-tooth tiger, and then we would run away and we would live to see another day, right? So this proneness to look for the threats and look for the problems has actually helped us survive for generations. But here we are in modern day America. We don't really have to worry about saber-tooth tigers anymore, but we still have this proneness to look for what's wrong. And you know it's true. And by the way, the social media companies know it's true, because when you wake up in the morning, what happens? You open your phone and you look at it, and all it says is, here are the worst things that happened on planet Earth in the last 24 hours. Good luck at work. Don't bring any of this with you. But it's hard because we're so prone to look for what's wrong and to look for the threats. And so I think, well, why is that the case? Why is it that even today, when we don't have to worry about saber-tooth tigers, are we still so prone to look for and to notice the negative? And I believe it's because of this, which is that pessimism creates the illusion of safety. Pessimism creates the illusion of safety. We think that if I keep focusing on and looking for what could go wrong in the market, with my clients, with a deal, whatever's happening in the world, then we think it's going to keep us safe. Well, there is truth to that. But what's the other part of this story, which is that if all we focus on is what could go wrong, we're just going to get more of that. We're going to live in a world that is purely riddled with problems, death, and anxiety, and that's what life is going to be like. So I'm at the airport. I get to my gate, and I'm trying to ask myself this question: where's the good? Who's doing something good that I can appreciate? First people I see are the pilots from the plane. They're sitting at a Chick-fil-A eating some food before our flight takes off. And so I think that's who I'm going to appreciate today, right? So then I had a problem, which is I don't know these guys, we've never met. How do you thank somebody you don't even know that you've never met before? So this is really where that masterclass in human connection began, because what I learned is what it takes to write somebody an authentic thank you card that you don't know is actually all that it takes to make a meaningful connection with anybody. So you can take this to your personal relationships, your business relationships, especially your buyers and your sellers and your team, or if you're on the recruiting side and you're getting people to the company, this is especially important to know. So first thing I do is I walk up to these pilots and I simply say, "Hey, do you guys mind if I have a seat?" And they look at me and say, "Sure." So I sit down with these reluctant pilots, and I couldn't tell you I was doing this at the time, but what I learned is that there's a framework to getting to meet somebody really quickly, to go deep in connection in a fast way. I call this the rapid relatability formula: story, significance, struggle. Story, significance, struggle. These are the three things to learn about someone in a conversation, and you're going to know more about them than many of their closest family members. So instead of talking about it, I'm just going to demonstrate how this worked out. So I sit down with these pilots and I ask them, I say, "Hey, I've never actually talked to the pilots of my plane. What's your story? How did you get here?" Here's a fascinating thing. When people start to tell you their story, what they're inadvertently telling you is about their value system. They're telling you about how and why they've made decisions in their life up to this point. Well, isn't that a great and valuable thing to know, especially if your job is partially helping people make decisions in business? So I say, "Hey, how'd you get here? What's your story?" And they both had a pretty interesting one. As little kids, they saw airplanes for the first time and thought, "Man, that's cool. I want to do that." Then they graduated high school, got into the Air Force, did that for a couple terms, got out of the Air Force, and said, "Man, I love this. I just want to keep this dream alive. I'm just going to become a commercial airline pilot." So these guys are essentially living their childhood dream. And I thought, that's pretty cool. Question two, significance. What's the best part about your job? What are you most excited about? Now, here's the interesting thing. When you ask people what's significant to them, what's important to them, what their goals are, they're telling you what gets them excited. Now, especially if you're working with a seller or you're recruiting somebody to the organization, isn't it valuable to know what they're looking forward to, what they want out of life? Because then that gives you the ability to frame the opportunity or what you can do around that. So I said, "What's the best part about your job?" And they start to talk about all the trips, the travel, the places they've been with their family, and all the cool things that they've done. And then one pilot kind of puffs his chest up a little bit and says, John, a lot of people like to brag about having the best corner office in the tallest building, but let me tell you, nobody has a better corner office than we do at 30,000 feet." And I thought, that's pretty cool. Third question, struggle. What's the hardest part about being a pilot? What's the most difficult part about being you? Now, this is a question a lot of people don't want to talk about in a conversation, especially with someone that they just met, because you don't want to make the conversation go in a negative direction. But the interesting thing is when you ask people this question, especially if you're working with a buyer or a seller, one of the most powerful questions you can ask them is, what are you most afraid might happen? Because when someone tells you the answer to that question, they're essentially saying, if you can solve that problem, I'll work with you. If you're trying to recruit somebody to the organization and they answer that question, they're saying, "Hey, if you can solve that problem, I'll come and work with you." So I ask these pilots, what's the hardest part about what you do? What worries you up? What worries you most about your job? Answer was completely the same. Everything they miss back at home. Birthdays, anniversaries, special events. And then one of the pilots gets a little excited and says, not this year. This is the first time in 12 years that I get to be home for Christmas Day." My heart broke for this guy. How many of you on this call have a greater appreciation for the pilots who fly airplanes just from hearing the answers to those three questions? So it's holding us back from asking those questions of everybody that we meet, from our clients to our current active team members, maybe our administrative assistant, maybe even your own family. And here's the point I want to make. The reason why these questions are so important, why they're so relevant to the depth of your relationships, is that sometimes the answers to these questions change. Sometimes what someone's biggest goals are in their life changes. Sometimes what somebody's struggling with deep down is actually changing from when you first met them. And if you don't ask these questions and engage with people in a deeper way, what's going to happen is somebody else is going to ask those questions. And unfortunately, that's when we can lose a key relationship. So eventually we have to board the plane. We take off. I'm sitting in my seat. Tray table comes down, lay my cards out. I don't even have to think about it because the cards basically write themselves. But here's what I said. Dear pilot, I'm sure it's strange to receive a thank you card from a passenger, but as I was boarding the plane today, I was thinking about how much I'm going to miss my family on this trip. And then I realized this is what you do every day for your job. I can't imagine how many birthdays, anniversaries, or special events you sacrificed for your work, not to mention the hundreds, if not thousands, of hours you spent in the cockpit training for your job, because nobody becomes a pilot by accident. All of that to have some bad weather, a slightly bumpy landing, and then have people complain about it. So whether you hear it enough or not, I just want to say thank you on behalf of myself and everybody on our flight. Fold up the card. I write two very similar cards because there's two pilots in the flight. We land in the next destination. They're still sitting in the cockpit, so as I'm exiting the plane, I get to physically hand them their cards, and they accept them awkwardly, as most strangers do when you hand them a thank you card. So I jump on another flight to do essentially the same thing to two additional pilots, right? So two different flights, four different pilots, four different thank you cards. Now, I didn't plan to do it this way, but at the time, I only had my business stationery with me, which has my name, cell phone number, and email physically printed on the card. What blew me away was within 24 hours of landing in my destination, two out of those four pilots personally contacted me to say thank you for the card that they received. One went on to say, you know, John, in my 20 years of flying, I have never received a thank you card from a passenger. And I thought, that's crazy. How is that even possible? These guys with such a big, significant, important job, and no one's even taking the time just to say thank you? And I thought, geez, if that's the case for these guys with such a big, important job, what about everybody else in their careers, in their relationships, in their marriages? There is a huge appreciation deficit in the world. So then I think, well, how do you apply this in a practical way? Like, how do you bring this down to real life in your business? And I think it looks like this. We call this the appreciation principle. Curiosity is the precursor to appreciation. And appreciation is the birthplace of empathy. With empathy, we develop compassion. And with compassion, we have the ability to literally connect with anyone. And why was Mother Teresa able to do what she did in the world? Why was Martin Luther King able to have the impact he had? What did they have more than most people? They had compassion, not because of what they could get, but because they understood the purpose of their life was to be of the highest level service to their fellow man. So thinking about that for your business, right? The funny thing about sales, right? I've been in sales and business my entire life. What's really interesting is sometimes when you meet people and you meet a salesperson and then you meet some of their customers are really often just a reflection of them because it's so much easier for us to relate to people that are like us. What's really fascinating is when you meet a salesperson who has a clientele that spans a wide variety of humanity because they've learned to actually show up curious in every conversation and in every relationship. Because what people need to feel connected isn't that you're the same with them, but that you can respect and appreciate where they come from. So that was day 3. You can imagine 362 more days of that. And I can't proclaim every day was as epic and prolific as day 3, but it was a very interesting year. Now, one thing that came up that I actually think is very relevant to our business and industry right now is this concept that I call emotional resilience, right? So emotional resilience is about our ability to metabolize painful experiences into positive progress. And the example I'm going to give you here is a little silly, but I think it's going to make sense, right? So a few months into the Mr. Thank You project, first of all, to let you know something about me, I'm the graduate of a small university out of Washington State called Gonzaga University. Any guys heard of Gonzaga before? Raise your hand if you heard of Gonzaga. Okay. If you know of this school, drop in the comments, right? We're mostly known for one thing, right? What is the one thing that Gonzaga University is known for? I want to see the chat box. Let's see who knows. Rick Ramirez, of course you get it right, my man. Basket back. I'm pretty sure you meant basketball. Yes, basketball is the answer. So the Gonzaga Bulldogs are Steve Nash. Did Steve Nash go to Gonzaga? Maybe I missed that. I know we've had a slew of pros come through the school. So anyways, I graduated from Gonzaga. And during the project, first time in school history, we make it to the NCAA national championship game. So if you're a March Madness fan or you've heard people going nuts over March Madness, you know this is one of the biggest things in sports in the sporting world. And so it's game day. It's Monday night. I'm sitting on our couch. We just moved to Dallas, Texas, or I'm sitting. You know, we didn't have couches yet. We're sitting in pillow cushions, watching the game, and we we're winning the game. Like it's a back and forth game, so close, very last minute, we lose to the UNC Tar Heels. I'm not a huge sports guy. And I always thought it was interesting if you ever watch the Super Bowl, right? They always show the video of the winning teams downtown and then the losing teams downtown. And the winning team, everyone's like celebrating and they're throwing confetti in the air. And the losing team, everyone's like flipping over cars and lighting trash cans on fire. And I never understood it until that day because I was so upset. My team, my baby, the Gonzaga Bulldogs, they lose the biggest game in school history. What do you do with that? So it's about 11 o'clock at night. My wife puts our kids to bed. And I'm sitting there at my desk and I got my 5 thank you cards laid out because I haven't written them yet. And y'all, I couldn't do it. I couldn't harness an ounce of gratitude because I was so upset that my team lost the big game. And I know that, again, that sounds so silly, but this brought up one of the greatest questions I had to learn how to answer this year, which is how do you be grateful when you don't feel like it? And this is a great place to share with you the definition of gratitude. So gratitude, defined by Dr. Robert Emmons, foremost researcher on the benefits of gratitude to our physiology and to our psychology, says this: gratitude is the emotion one feels when receiving a gift or experiencing something as a gift. What does that mean? Well, it makes sense. If somebody gives you a gift unexpectedly, it's not even your birthday, you didn't do anything for it, how does that feel? That joy, that excitement, that in essence is gratitude. But the other part of this story is the experience of something as a gift. That's actually more important. So let's hone in on that. So let me take you back to a moment of life that may not be your favorite moment you've been alive, right? Which is the first time that you were madly in love, right? Maybe you were 12 years old, that little person you held hands with at school, and you said, we're going to get married one day. And then it's over. How does that feel? Whatever age you were, 12, 15, 25, 35, you get the point. How does that feel? It's terrible. It's like men are awful. Women are terrible. Life is over. We're so emotionally distraught. And yet, months or years later, we can all look back on that previously painful experience and we can say, you know, I'm actually really glad that happened. I'm really glad that that happened all those years ago because it caused me to learn all these things about myself that I couldn't have learned any other way. I'm actually really so glad that relationship ended because I met somebody different that I married and started a family with. So I can actually feel gratitude in this moment from a previously painful experience. And so the question becomes, how long does it take us to feel gratitude from a previously painful experience? And the answer is as long as it takes you to find the gift. And in every life experience, there is a gift, but it is your job to find it. How many of you know that some of the greatest character qualities that you possess have come from going through the most difficult times of your life? Great. Then why are you resisting it? Why are you saying that whatever you're going through right now, you shouldn't be going through? Because what if what you're going through right now is exactly what you need to be going through for you to learn the things that you need to learn that you can't learn any other way, for you to become the person who you're eventually meant to be? What if you're exactly where you need to be right now? So it's 11 o'clock at night. Kids are asleep. I'm staring at these blank thank you cards and I'm just racking my brain. Where's the gift? Where's the positive? Where's the good? And it was like a light bulb goes off because I realized I didn't watch my team lose the national championship. You know what I just witnessed? I just witnessed arguably the best team in my school's history play the game of basketball. Like, that deserves to be celebrated. You know what? I'm going to write a handwritten card to every single player of the entire Gonzaga men's basketball team. It's about 15 people. So over that next week, I spent hours a day, every single day, looking up ESPN.com, NCAA.com, YouTube videos, looking through every player's stats so that every card was hyper specific to each individual player of that team. And even the red shirts who didn't play that season to say, hey, championship teams are not made in the championship game. They're made in every practice that led up to it. So thank you for helping our team become the best in school history. Y'all, it was crazy because it wasn't months, weeks, or days. I'm talking minutes from upset, anger, this shouldn't be happening, to feeling pure and authentic joy. And I thought, man, this is powerful. Like, how can we apply this in the business setting, right? So I started to look at, like, what's one of the most painful things that we deal with in business? Now, I don't know about you guys, but what we deal with is something called a cancellation. Have any of you ever dealt with a cancellation in your life or your business, right? Something significant you expected to go down that just didn't happen, right? So we deal with that. It's very painful. So we implemented a strategy. The moment we get notice of cancellation, we automatically send that client a thank you card. Nothing fancy, just very simple. Dear client, we just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to potentially serve you. While it looks like we are not going to be doing business together right now, we just want to say we're so grateful for you taking the time for letting us to present our offer. If anything changes in the future, we would love the opportunity to win your business back. Sincerely, the Mr. Thank You team. We send that out to every single client after a cancellation. We tracked the stat. We tracked this. Here's what we found. 50% of those cancellations came back and rebought within 6 months. Think about that stat. Money you don't lose is money that you make. And it makes sense because every one of us has had to cancel something. I mean, you all know what it's like when maybe you go to the store and you kind of overbuy. You're a little like, you're excited. You got a lot of cool stuff. So you buy a bunch of things and later like, I got to return half that stuff. So you go back to the store, you got that little walk of shame and you're like, it doesn't fit, or whatever excuse you make up, right? We've all done that. Let me ask you this. How many of you have done that and then received a thank you card from your salesperson? Rarely do I ever see a hand raise. What if you did? What would that tell you about the individual? And here's what it would tell you, which is that results shows skill, but how we handle problems shows character. Results show skill. All of you sell real estate, right? In some capacity, right? You're relatively good at your job. You have a skill, right? Results show that. But how we handle problems demonstrates character. If loyalty matters to you, you need to pay attention to how not you make a perfect experience, but when it doesn't go perfect, how do you respond to it? Because here's what I can guarantee. I bet all of you have somebody that you are either no longer in relationship or you no longer do business with because of how they handled the problem. They blamed, they gave responsibility to somebody else, they blamed you for it. But I also bet that there is somebody in your life, maybe you do business with, that you are extremely loyal to because of how they handled the problem. Because they actually showed up from a place of service and curiosity and support, solving the problem rather than blaming. Because isn't that what loyalty is for? It's really us psychologically understanding how are you going to respond when things are hard. And if things are hard in your business right now, wouldn't it feel great to have an army of loyal clients that you have shown up for who start showing up for you? So a couple months go by. I'm out to dinner with my wife. Actually, of all days, it was my birthday, May 21st. And we're out to dinner. And my wife pulls out an envelope from her purse. She says, oh, by the way, something showed up for you in the mail today. And I looked, and it's a letter addressed from Gonzaga men's basketball. I actually have that letter right here. I don't normally do this from home, but check this out. This is actually a handwritten letter from Mark Few, the head coach of Gonzaga men's basketball. If some of y'all don't know who this guy is, Mark Few is one of the winningest coaches in the history of college basketball. Guy makes millions of dollars a year, meaning I could not have paid him to write this. But isn't that one of the most powerful lessons we can learn today? Which is that the best people have to give you cannot be bought. The best referrals people have to give you cannot be bought with an incentive program. The most loyalty from friends, family, your team cannot be bought. It's because they have anchored in their being the confidence of who you are to them and the understanding that you're going to be with them no matter what. And isn't that what we all want anyways? So as you start to wrap things up, I'm curious, how many of you have thought of at least one person who deserves to hear thank you from you? Raise your hand. All right. So I'm going to give you a chance to do that. Since this is virtual, I'm going to give you some options here, right? If you have a thank you card near you, right, just blow the dust off them, right? Because we know they've been sitting there for a while. You've been meaning to write them. So we're going to just inspire you to write them right now. And I'm going to give you a framework that I've come to find. We call this the ABCs of a legendary thank you note. So I'm going to put this up here. The ABCs of a legendary thank you note: attitude, behaviors, challenges. So what does this mean? This kind of goes along with some of the framework we talked about today. So start simple. Hey, I was thinking about you today. And whatever you want to say there. Attitude is focused on their character qualities, right? That they're loving, caring, generous, patient, whatever, kind. B stands for behaviors, which is the actions. Like, what have they done? What have they done for you? What have they said? How have they helped you? How have you seen them show up and help others? C stands for challenges, which is what do they deal with, handle, or overcome, and still do what they do. So we call these the ABCs of a legendary thank you note. Now, here's what I will say is if you, I'm going to put these back up here in a second. If you don't have a card next to you, I'm going to invite you, if you can do so without getting distracted, to open your phone and do this as a text message, or open an email and do this as an email. I think both of those can be just as powerful. But I'm going to give you a choice here. So what I'm also going to do is I would love to send y'all a gift. I do this thing that's a 30-day challenge. So it's a 30-day challenge to do this every single day for 30 days. And so we always love to do a little survey of our audiences. So I'm going to put a QR code on the screen with the framework. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this, and then we're going to wrap on my side, and we'll kind of swing this back to Nate and the Remax team. So here's what it looks like. So the ABC is right there. And then when you're done with your card, you're done with your letter, you can scan that QR code. We always love to take a quick survey from our audience just to kind of hear what you took about today, what you what you enjoyed about today, what your experience was. There's also a question that says if you're part of a group or organization that you think would value this message, you're welcome to make note of that here. And if that's the case, you're welcome to do that. So I'm just going to go and leave this on the screen for about 5 minutes. Let you guys write your card, scan the QR code, take your short survey, and then we'll go ahead and start to wrap up for the day. All right, got about 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. No rush. If you need more time than that, take as much time as you need. No rush here. All right, last minute here. You can start wrapping up your thoughts, but of course, if you need a lot more time, if you need more time than that, you're welcome to take as much time as you need. No rush. All right. Well, gonna go ahead and start wrapping things up. If you need more time, take as much time as you need. But I'd like to wrap with just a couple closing words. I'd like to end by saying thank you for doing that, um, because you didn't have to. Right? No, nobody made you do it. You're not getting paid extra for it. And I think that's really the power of what we're talking about today. Because at the end of the day, why do we do what we do, right? Why are we in the career paths that we're in? Why do we run the business that we're in? Why do we do any of this? Because in some way, shape, or form, we believe it's going to make us happy and fulfilled. Well, if that's true, then here are my final thoughts for you. If fulfillment is the finish line, gratitude is the starting line. Because if you can learn to appreciate what you have now, you actually become somebody who is happier when you finally get what you say you want. Thanks for having me, everybody.
Thank you so much, John. Just an amazing presentation. I like I'd like to see if anybody wants to say anything and open it up to the team here. Anybody have any words for John or questions or gratitudes for his talk today? Tim, you're in charge. There we go. Go ahead, Rick.
No, I didn't know if we were going to talk, so I just wrote it there in the comments that your message always resonates big time with me. So thank you for everything, because gratitude is really big with me. It's what the biggest message I impress upon my kids every day. You know, for everything. Every time if I make them dinner, thank you, Dad. I remind them to be thankful just as they go through life. And I let them know it's not so much I need you to be thankful to me. It's I want you to just all have that in mind. So when you're out in the world, you just remember to be thankful for everything. And every time now, when they're out there, I see their friends' parents always tell them they're always so thankful about everything. So it's like, it means a lot to me. So your message always really resonates with me and everything. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that, Rick. And especially, kids are I think a group that we can all agree probably need a little something like this more, like this understanding, because the world is just going to riddle them with the question of, or with the point of what they don't have, what their friends have, and it just kind of like indoctrinates them into feeling like whatever they have isn't enough. So love that you've kind of built that into your family fabric, man. That's great.
Roberta has her hand up. Go ahead, Roberta.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, John, and thank you for your presentation. I'm very grateful to Nate. He brings in so many impressive speakers and people who teach us things. You have been at our office before, obviously, and when I saw that you were speaking today, my gratitude level raised tenfold. I
awesome.
told my team, I really want you to be here online. This man is amazing. He has the most perfect message, and it really you always inspire me with the anecdotes that you have, the stories you've lived, and I'm grateful to you for being here today presenting. And I really wish I could just have a little injection of you every week.
That's awesome.
You're just fabulous, and thank you for your message and trying to change the world for the positive.
Yeah, and appreciate that, and that means a lot. You kind of shared this with your team. It's likely that I'll be back in Phoenix for a live in-person keynote hosted by an inspection company. So I'll let Nate know once we've kind of locked in a date. So if any of y'all want to come or bring anybody with you for the event, you're welcome to do that.
We'll definitely be there. That's for sure. All right. Anybody else? Going, gone.
We got
Well,
Jump in, Nick.
Yep.
Oh, you're still muted, Nick.
Thanks,
there you
John,
go.
and thanks, Nate, for bringing such a nice topic and an expert on it. Yeah, gratitude is not something new, but it was the other side of the coin. I lived in the gratitude, but I never ever expressed it to the other people as you are trying to send through the thank you notes. Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think it's a new way of looking at making this world a little better. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, and so Nick, just to kind of highlight on something you said there, because that's actually a really beautiful point, which is that gratitude is often communicated to the world as like, yeah, this is something that you should do, right? Like get a journal, like write down what you're grateful for. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's called passive gratitude. Passive gratitude is where it's just something that you kind of keep it in this sphere. There's benefits to that, right? All gratitude has benefits. Active gratitude is where you take that gratitude you feel internally and express it outwardly, right? And someone shared with me a quote. You may or may not like it, but it's gratitude unexpressed is like getting somebody a Christmas present and then putting it in the closet, right? Like, so to actually feel gratitude towards another person but not tell them, it's actually really limiting them from receiving a gift. And the other part of this, which is interesting, is when I really hit on this concept of pessimism, like I really truly think that so many people are just riddled with like, what's wrong with the world? Everyone hates each other. Nobody talks anymore. Like there's this real experience of that. And this fascinating thing that we found is actually there's evidence that shows when people are thanked and appreciated, they are more so the best version of themselves with who they see next. And it actually pulls out of them this desire to be better. And so fun fact, I've been teaching this to my kids. So we do something different now with the pilots, where the pilots and the flight attendants, instead of the pilots or flight attendants, we write a thank you card to the crew, because the crew goes to everybody who's running the plane. So what I've taught my kids to do is they write the card now and they give it to the flight attendant when they come to ask for our drink order. And here's the interesting reason why, is because when you give it to them during the drink order, it gives them a chance to actually say something back. And I think we're actually batting like 5 out of 5 right now, that every flight my kids have been on with me that they've done this, the flight attendants have come back and like showered them with gifts, Southwest stuff, with swag, with extra snacks and food that we like. It's crazy how much more loving people are when we choose to be that way first. Right. And I think that's this real concept of many of us. I'm not saying to you, Nick, but I'm just saying in general, for many of us, there is this experience that I'll be more like that when people are more like that. I'll be kinder to others when they're kinder to me. That can be personal relationships with our spouse or significant other, or even our own kids or family. So we start to have this like weird psychology of, all right, we're looking at a fireplace and it's like, all right, you give me some heat and then I'll put some wood in. And it's like, nah, it's not, it's not really how fires work, right? So if you want a business where there's a lot of clients and people around you who are just forthcoming with referrals and repeat business and just connection, it's because we've taken it upon ourselves to build it in as a system in our business, right? To build it in as something into the fabric of how we communicate, how we connect with people. And so I just wanted to highlight what you said there, Nick, because I think that's a great point, which is that it's one thing to feel gratitude here, but it's a total different experience when you put it out there.
But you wear it, so it's automatically available to others. But I
Yeah.
do understand. But till now, I used to think that that's a soft bribe.
Yeah.
What you just explain, all the notes and all that kind of stuff, is a soft bribe to the next person. But that's okay. But there's a different attitude. But it's a good idea. I think we'll implement it.
Awesome. Thanks, Nick. All right. Well, any last thoughts comments or questions, Nate
I like
or
to jump in
Remax
with
team?
one other piece here, which has always resonated to me, and that's one of the books I keep nearby because sometimes even just like seeing the cover, right, kind of puts you back in that mindset. And it's not just I think Gratitude Express, but how you do it, right, the method, because I think especially if you think about someone like a spouse, right, and all your guys' examples, Rick as well, like, hey, thanks for making dinner, like things like that. Well, that's great, but I think sometimes it becomes background, right? Like, hey, thanks, and you kind of stop hearing it. But if you give someone like your spouse a thank you card for just what they do for you every day, being a partner in your life, that kind of thing, the method that like brings it back to the front so they can actually feel it a little bit more. I think that's hugely powerful. It's not hard to do, but I mean, I'm certainly guilty of it, right? And not making sure I'm overtly expressing gratitude in a way that really resonates someone where they really hear it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And what's great, guys? You know how much this costs? $0. Maybe if you get some fancy stationery, like $2.50, right? But I think as far as a happiness and success strategy, I think it's going to be hard to beat.
Hey, John, I got to thank you. Your teaching skills are amazing. It's a concept of giving thanks, but giving us the stories, giving us the actionable how to, I think is priceless. And I took a picture of that screenshot, something I'll probably keep on my phone forever. And I really appreciate you taking the time to come out and talk to us. I know you're a busy guy. Maybe real quick before we break, why don't you tell us about the new company and what you're doing in the gifting world? Maybe because we all need help in gifting. Maybe you can share something real quick.
Do I get a shameless commercial here? Is that what I
Yeah,
get?
it's a
Nice.
thank you.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll be brief with this, but so really this is what we do as a company, as a business, right? So Mr. Thank You partner with a great brand called Giftology. If some of you guys are familiar with Giftology, they're one of the largest gifting agencies in the world, and they do really kick-ass gifts for clients, for VIPs and referral partners. And so if you want to learn more, you can simply go to my website, so mrthankyou.com, so mrthankyou.com. And if you just work with John, so there's gifting right there. You can go there and check it out, and they'll happily follow up with you if you have some gifting needs. Thanks for putting that in the chat box, Kim. And same with coaching. So they have a really powerful. I know all of us want to get more referrals in our business. They've got a really powerful program called the Referral Partner Transformation Course. And it's really about helping people just get more referrals in their business using some of my strategies, but also other ideas. It's a bit more of a business-centric message and training, but it's a community that they've built to really help individuals just get better at creating more word-of-mouth referrals that are trackable and sustainable. So if you want to check any of those out, just go to mrthankyou.com and fill out any of the forms, and we'll connect in with Giftology, and they'll follow up with you and help you guys out.
Yeah, a friend of John and I's, John Rowland, passed away. He started and wrote a book called Giftology, and that's a really good book. I'd recommend to get John's book, Mr. Thank You Project, and John's book, because they both share great stories. And Giftology is a pretty cool company. So I'm so glad that you guys have that you came together after his passing and helping them grow that company as well. So,
yeah.
Well, hey guys, I got to run. I got to get ready for a class today, but I want to thank you guys so much for coming out. John, again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking time to working with us today. Appreciate it.
100%.